Need headphones, sweetheart? Yeah, girl. And if they move around us,
That's fine. That's fine right there.
you do good. Yeah. And if they roam, the main thing is, we want to keep them here for both our peace of
Okay.
mind. Hey, are we on?
Yeah.
Very good. This very minute, no
Yeah.
opening of
It's time.
Young Love After
Hey,
50.
wait. Here you go. Here you go. Okay, we're live. Go
Good
for it.
morning, everyone, on this amazing Thursday morning in October, early October. And I have the delight and pleasure to be with Kristen Cooksley again.
Thank you for having me.
This is the second time we've met, and I am on fire about the right to know, the California initiative, California's right to know whether or not our food has been compromised with genetically modified organisms, the GMOs. They're so prevalent in our food source.
80% of processed foods have some item in it that's been genetically modified. Typically, it's corn, high fructose corn syrup, soy lecithin. Those are the big ones.
And even canola.
And canola as well. Yes.
Canola, which we just have to stay up with all the information that's out there. And what's gotten me so amazed by this, as I look beyond our own borders of the United States of America and being a proud citizen born and raised here in the United States of America, in Europe, they have banned GMOs.
So, some countries have entirely banned them. All the European Union has mandated different, each of the laws are a little bit different, but they all label. Everybody in the European Union labels. And there are several countries who have completely banned the importation of, for instance, GMO corn. Hungary is one of them. Russia just banned the importation of U.S. GM corn as well. So, there are 50 other countries, including China, Australia, the European Union, as we said, they all have labeling laws, and we don't here. And it's because of the corporate influence, the lobbying, and the big ag companies dumping millions of dollars.
Well, what's shocking, me being 53 years old and wanting to raise my children to respect the laws of nature and the mutual respect of one another, teaching them the values of compassion and communication, and the clarity, just staying clear with what you are bringing to whatever situation you are involved in. That is just an amazing feat unto itself. And nursing our babies so that they get the best immunization through the mother's milk, and they get that foundation within their own little complex systems, that the constitution of well-being. And if we have a compromised food source, and this has been going on since the 70s, we really have been put to sleep in this whole area, and they don't want us to wake up.
No, that's for sure. Like I said, there's so many dollars being dumped into this, the corporate interest in this. Monsanto alone has put in $7 million just to defeat this campaign. They've raised over $30 million from Dow, from Bayer, from Kellogg's, from Coca-Cola, junk food companies. Whereas if you look at who's endorsed our campaign, it's the California Nurses Association, the American Environmental Medical Association. There's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of healthcare organizations, the National Association of Nutrition Professionals, hundreds of people,
Yes.
hundreds of healthcare organizations, hundreds of individuals, mom and pop shops, farmers have endorsed us.
Right here at the whole Weedery, the reason we have this fire, this passion, this alarm, because we understand that food is our medicine and medicine is our food. So the interweaving of pharmaceuticals and then your the food source being contaminated, and then the research that's needed to counter what is produced from this. And I'm not bioengineering, biotechnology. There's a place for it. There's a place for everything. However, the sanctity, the sacredness, the purity of the seed, which we sustain the planet with, and that's why outside countries are banning GMOs, period, because they're airborne. It contaminates the neighboring field, someone who's trying to maintain their organic status.
Yeah.
And so what the initiative is asking, which is Prop 37, and you're already seeing the older white man who looks so solid and authoritarian telling us that it's just not level, this playing field of labeling. We're not labeling everything, so why would we want to label anything? And there's no sense in that. So what we want as the consumer is, I'm going to buy a product that has the courage to say non-GMO. And that is an easy way to identify that pure food source, because people want to say, well, organic is expensive. Well, let me tell you, have you priced cancer lately? And that is why these industries are being questioned and called out into the light. The greed has overtaken us as a species for the last 40 years. And it has created, instead of citizens, it's created sheeple. So I am asking us to wake up. The state of California, we are known as the land of fruits and nuts, and guess what? That makes us sweet and nutty. And we're also movers and shakers in this creative energy and the stars that we hang amongst. So let's wake up on this Prop 37, become informed. Kristen is here. She brought her 2 precious children. So we do this from the inside out, don't we, honey?
Absolutely.
Are you practicing what you preach?
Absolutely. In fact, my son constantly walks around and just out of nowhere he'll ask me, Mommy, does this have GMOs in it? I said, no, it doesn't. I do not feed you GMOs. So he hears me talking about it. It's in our household. My husband is part of this. We do this with whatever time that we have, because this initiative is just about a right to know. It's not about anything else, but just giving us the same rights that other 50 people in 50 other countries have.
Mm-hmm.
And
so that the right to know, and that's what the labeling is the right to know. And if we start with some products now and we expand upon that, I would like to know, if it's in my wine, or if it's in my cereal, if it's in my household products. I just want to know what my money is supporting.
And this initiative is actually very, very simple. It really is. Companies have until 2014 to put a little label anywhere on their box or bag or whatever it is that says may contain genetically modified organisms. That's it. So they don't have to go through testing. They don't have to, it's not about proving anything. We're not adding to taxes. We're not adding a government regulatory agency. This is just about putting a little label. They have 2 years to put a tiny little label on their box that says it might contain genetically modified organisms if it does. And they know whether or not it does. So this is very simple. Companies change their labels all the time. You'll see, the Olympic rings that were on things, the Susan B. Komen, ribbon, pink ribbon that comes on and off depending upon the time of year. They change their labels all the time. This is really misinformation that they're putting out there.
It is. It is darkness in another form, and it's using the human beings as guinea pigs, and it's harming. It's not just harming those of us who are awake, aware, alert, and we're sounding the alarm of just pay attention and wake up and become a little bit more educated. I'm so grateful to be living in the state of California for this reason, because we are given this option of the basic birthright to know what is in our food source. Little stick-on label. I know you can get 500 of them for about $1, and you just slap it on there. May contain GMO products. May contain is enough information for me as the consumer to decide if it's a risk that I'm worth taking for my own well-being.
Little clarification, and that is, when you said the white man, you were talking about the ad campaign against it.
Yeah.
Well, the advertising. We've been aware with the highest court's decision to give corporations same rights as the individual, but this is how they're going to flood their profits in the direction of keeping us in the dark and keeping us unaware of what's been going on in the laboratories and in our food sources, from our meat industries, our grain industries, the sugar industries, and how we're just that we need more regulation in this area, and self-regulation And I am better equipped at self-regulating if I can read that label and it's telling me what my money is supporting. That, as a citizen of this country, I believe is my voting right, is to know what is going into my body. And it crosses to medical care as well. This is a time of radical transparency. And we were just spending days with NASA, and they have an open data policy. Do you know how freeing that is to have an open data policy? And if something as international of an agency as NASA can lead the way of this radical transparency, I think it's very reasonable to ask of it in our food industry. May contain GMOs. So this is when we're getting the assault. We had our first debate last night. We're going to be getting this assault of no on 37. You're going to be spoon-fed all kinds of misinformation. Stay strong as a citizen, someone who is invested in your own well-being. Yes on 37. Go from there. If you want to participate in it, participate in it. I don't see how we can purify it any. I mean, we really have gone so far off the charts of contamination. I think that's what the hesitation is for. They don't want us to know how compromised our grains are, the rice that is grown.
Yeah, it's really an ethical issue at this point, because the way that it was put into the food system without anyone ever knowing about it, it's really kind of, and that's why they don't want people to label it. They don't want you to know. They don't want you to start looking into the science or lack thereof behind this, how experimental the technology is, how you're actually messing with the DNA of the corn and of the soy, and that it's actually producing pesticides or insecticides within it that can't be washed off when we're consuming it. They don't want people to know that, and this is exactly what this campaign is about. It's just your right to know.
Yes.
We managed to label trans fats a few years ago without causing food prices to skyrocket. People still buy margarine. This is not complicated. This is a tiny little label, and it doesn't. The cost is what they're predicting is nothing. So when Europe did this, they saw no increase in cost. So it's frustrating to see those campaigns out there when they are spreading so much misinformation about this.
And it's within our country. This is how two-faced it is and how far off the charts. This first segment of the show today is about the basic yes on Prop 37 may contain genetically modified organism food products in it. Again, what Kristen said earlier, 80% is estimated that 80% of our food source, processed food source, already has this. So we have a responsibility to the globe as a nation. We are looked to as the role model and the guiding light of the world. And that's why it's just so confusing all around the globe what we are doing and how we are risking all of the resources for mankind right here in our country.
Now that responsibility, localized, what's going on here locally, and how can we get involved here locally?
Well, we have a very active local team, consists of people from all political persuasions, all generations. It's just people who care about what we eat. Our group is basically just the local chapter of the California Right to Know Initiative. You can see us at the various farmers markets. You can see. Sorry, my son is trying to join us here.
Come see your mommy.
The various farmers markets, at different walks and so forth that we have, around town. So we try to be out there and talking to people because we realize that this is our way of trying to give people the truth, is actually talking to them about it. Our campaign doesn't have the money to throw in these, commercial blitzes out there. So we have to get the word of mouth out. And if you were to email me, avlabelgmos@gmail.com, I can tell you when our next meeting is and what we can do locally to help influence this change. I just want to mention one other thing. The big thing that they're talking about is the cost associated with this initiative, and they keep citing a study from UC Davis that said it was going to increase food for a family about $400 a year. It says on the front page of that study, and you can Google it and find it yourself, that study was funded by the No on Prop 37 initiative. So so it's biased. So don't believe the things that you're seeing out there, or just take the time to do the research yourself, and you'll see that this is just initiative makes sense.
Initiative that makes sense, and someone needs to carry the banner and said it. That's another way that California says yes on this, and of course it's going to sweep the nation, and that's precisely what we as a collective, as a public body, public entity, can be a part of that force, that shift for greater awareness and participation.
Absolutely.
How can we be well if we're not choosing to live well or love well? That's all we do. Kristen, we choose life, we choose love, and then in that we choose well. So that's what I want to do. I am certain that food is my medicine and medicine is my food. And as we twist and turn the DNAs of the plant sources, then it's inevitable that it mutates within the own human body. This is a plant in and of itself, and these mutations is what compounds the health issues that are prevalent in our society today.
Yeah, one of the main reasons why we have so many health organizations and health professionals on our side is specifically because of all, and particularly the American Environmental Medical Association. It is because right now people don't know if they're eating it or not, so it's impossible to actually track whether or not this is influencing some of the diseases that are popping up out there. You know, autism, increased cancers, food allergies. We just don't know because a person can't even tell you, oh, well, when I eat a GM product, it causes, you know, this type of reaction versus when I don't, because we don't have the choice right now. We don't know.
Don't know. And just knowing and inviting the knowing is so personally empowering. Not being afraid to live this life. Anyone who's spoon feeding us fear needs to be kept at a distance, because you can't choose love if you're choosing fear. You've got to go forward with courage.
Do you have a support of any local candidates that are running?
Well, we have the support of the California Democratic Party, but as far as local candidates, I don't believe we've had any of them officially endorsed. I mean, I can go validate that because things happen daily, changes happen. It's such an active campaign, so I don't believe so, but I'm not 100%. I can certainly fact check that right after this, and I'll let you know.
Yeah, that's a great question, because whether you're Republican or Democrat, you too are eating food as we are eating food. And so it's in your best interest to educate yourself about the complications that come and what the globe is doing, because we are here to cooperate. That's another thing I so love about NASA, is the international cooperation, and they have their pulse on the climate change as well, which is, you know, we're all in this together, on this rock hurling through space, and if we can just educate and bring each other up in the light, and feeling well is such, it just makes life worth living, to hold and maintain your sense of health and well-being. So, Kristen, when's the next meeting and where is it?
Well, actually, next Tuesday we're kind of having because it's World Food Day. We are going to be our normal meetings are on Tuesdays, so it's the 16th, and you'll actually see us out on Columbia or 10th Street and Rancho Vista Boulevard, waving our signs, trying to get the word out right after work for most people. So then we'll have an abbreviated meeting after that. You can kind of see us all out there trying to spread the word, and then the next meeting will be 2 Tuesdays, every other Tuesday, so I don't know the date off the top of my head. We'll be meeting again, and again, I can give you people the address for that, if they want to get involved.
But this coming Tuesday, and most people can collect, can come together.
It would be the 16th, so the following, because we just had our meeting 2 days ago.
Okay.
So it'll be in 2 weeks.
So a week from this coming Tuesday, at the corner of Rancho Vista Boulevard and Avenue and 30th West, right there at Marie Care Park.
No, I'm sorry. The Rancho Vista Boulevard and 10th Street. Sorry.
10th, no, you said 10th Street West. I took it over 30th. So 10th Street West and Rancho Vista Boulevard. That's right there at the mall.
Yeah.
Woohoo!
Yeah.
That's gonna be made. Let's make it a little congestion there at the mall.
Right.
So whoever shows up will have a placard. You guys.
You can help get the word out with us. It's just going to be for 30 minutes. You know, it's in support of World Food Day, and to try to, again, just be a presence in the community. We also can find us at the farmers market, the Thursday farmers market right here in Lancaster. You'll see us circulating, walking around. We'll have our signs. That's a great way to just want to approach us individually. Give you the ins and outs.
Yes. So every Thursday, the farmers market is on Lancaster Boulevard in the afternoon. So the Prop 37, yes on 37, label GMO products. Local representatives will mingle about through that farmers market, so you can get more information directly from them. And then a week from Tuesday, October the 16th, right there at the mall entrance, Metro Bitly, pretty
Well,
much.
it's closer to kind of the Michaels, McDonald's. There's a gas station there, and the mall, right? On all four corners.
Okay,
so
so
we're going to try to be right at that intersection. And you'll obviously see a lot of people politically demonstrating. We're gonna take our ground there for a little while.
It's fabulous, though. And just for 30 minutes on a Tuesday evening, World Food Day, and we're going to be a part of it and step out and speak the truth. That's what the world is aching for.
Speaking of causes, of course, this month is Cancer Awareness Month across the country. And yesterday we were at Avens with Bob Turner, who's really involved with this cause, and Chris Spiker was there, and they did a little piece for us. So we're going to go to that now and transition. And thank you so much for coming.
Thank you
It's
for
been
having
great.
me.
Kristen, we'll see you on the street.
All right.
Yay! Yes, I'm 37. Be proactive. Take charge of it.
Chris Spiker, AV Nice. We're here on the boulevard today in front of Avens Furniture, Lancaster Boulevard, 10th Street West.
Chris?
Nice shirt, Bob.
Thank you,
I love
thank
those
you.
colors.
Yeah.
You look stunning in those colors.
Thank you, thank you.
Yep. And so tell me, what's going on?
Well, October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month.
That's right.
All along the boulevard, all month long. That's right, the boulevard's
I
right
see
there.
it.
Brand new and shiny.
Wow.
It's going to be Turn the Boulevard Pink. And we're selling, what do we call it? We call it
Little-
pink ribbon merchandise.
Yeah.
It's all dedicated to raising money for the Susan G. Komen three-day
Cancer
walk in
Awareness.
Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Yeah.
Cool.
So, and there's stores all on Lancaster Boulevard
Who
that
else
are-
is involved?
that are selling products. Well, we've got Panache Hair Studio and Day Spa,
Yep.
all about fitness. Big U Jewelers,
Yep.
the Boulevard Antique Store, Molly Cates, the Lemon Leaf, Battlegrounds, AV Art Club, Valley White Dental, several others.
A lot of people.
That's right, lots of people.
So it's pretty much the first week of October, but then the campaign is the whole month of October.
That's right. That's right. There's a three-day walk that's nationwide, and then there's going to be a week-long period where we're raising money for a specific event in Lancaster, and the entire month is Breast Cancer Awareness Month.
Very
So the
cool.
entire month the boulevard will be pink. So that's why the jersey.
Well, that's nice.
Yeah.
And thank you.
AV Nice, right?
AV Nice. Yep. Lancaster Boulevard Nice. So
That's
thank
right.
you for bringing it to our attention.
That's right. You're
Very
welcome.
nice.
You're welcome.
You want to go for a bike ride?
You know, I was hoping that since I wore the jersey,
Yeah.
that you'd want to go for a bike ride. I see that you're not quite dressed for the bike ride I had in mind.
Well, I'm ready to do my share, though.
Yeah. Well, I'm ready to go for a bike ride.
Okay, let's do it.
Are you going to be on the back?
If you don't mind.
I don't mind.
Okay.
Okay. Thanks. Were you working back there?
I was, man. I've been thinking about the whole thing.
We're going uphill against the wind. I'm feeling nothing. I'm not feeling any love back there. There's
I've
no
been behind
no
you.
help. There's
I've
no,
been
you're
behind
behind me. Are you on the phone?
I was drafting right behind you.
Are you
there.
producing the video?
I was thinking about a lot
Were,
of stuff.
were you thinking about like floral arrangements? Because
I
I'm not
was-
feeling anything out here.
You know, I was thinking
Nothing.
about lazy boy chairs is what I was thinking.
Were you?
I was thinking
you
about
kind of
lazy-
relaxing back there?
Yeah, I was thinking about just putting the chair back and the foot thing comes up,
Yeah.
you know, and relaxing.
Well,
It was very relaxing. Thank you, Bob.
well, you're welcome. It was a fun ride.
It was
We'll
a
have to
great
do it
ride.
again one day.
This is a good example of teamwork, what you and I can produce together.
That's right.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hey, we're back.
Yes, we are back. Hello, everyone. I'm Marva Greenleaf, co-hosting with Jim Greenleaf this hour of Power, where we get to visit all of our options invigorate one another, energize each other with this divine healing light that grows each and every one of us so very well. We were just spending time with Kristen and her two young ones. The mother's heart, that pure mother's heart, it is ferocious when it comes to our cubs. Local living, though, local living brings a lot of entertainment, quality, as we're taking care of the serious business with serious fun. Local living, they're going to have a Lombardi Ranch promotion coming up here soon, and 'tis the season for Lombardi Ranch, Jim Dandy.
It is. It is. And coming up with Local Living, we teamed with the Slam, the LA Slam, and of course the Antelope Valley Christian Schools. December 1st, we're going to have a game on Saturday night, and then a game on Sunday. Fresno's coming to town, and they're going to start their season. And we're really excited that we've all teamed together for this. And Local Living is going to have an incredible deal. And I'm not going to announce what's going on, but something very special. And we'll do that probably next week.
For the Slams
Yes.
games?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I believe that. I think they're going to play 12 or 14 local games.
We're going to play 12 to 14, depending on what happens.
On the hometown,
right
here, because they consider this their hometown. Antelope Valley Christian School on Avenue L has a regulated professional basketball court, and it's just up close and personal. These pro players that come and sweat and interact and show sportsmanship most of the time.
Yeah. We're going to thank the rest of our sponsors, too. Bob Turner, who you saw in that beautiful pink shirt.
Cycling Bob.
Cycling Bob from Avens Furniture. They're having a big sale going on now. Go check it out. But we were walking around inside the store yesterday, Chris and I were, and we were amazed. I mean, say you go there to get a mattress, but you're going to walk in these environments where you want the whole room.
Oh, yeah. He creates healing spaces all throughout his store with his furniture and the colors, the quality that he provides the community. You will get the best quality for the fewest dollars at Avens Furniture. Go inside and see how he colors our community. It's pink this entire month of October for, support the Tatas. Breast cancer,
Support the Tatas.
Yeah, well, there are these mammary glands, and they really do collect a lot of the toxins. That so many of us detox so that we can overcome the cancer cells that are inevitably within the system. So this is the month to be aware of the Tatas, how it affects every set of breast out there. Man and woman.
And hopefully the first year of your life, you were Tata'd out.
You had your own personal set of tatas to begin your journey in life.
We want to thank On the Air TV, who broadcasts us live on their station, and we appreciate that across the country. They're out of Boston and Glow. We thank you for being part of the solution here.
Yes.
What we're doing. It's a neat thing.
And another brother from another mother is Chris Spiker.
Antelope Valley Floors.
AV Floors, AV Nice. He just walks it.
Let me tell you where he's at right now. The poor guy was up like at 4 a.m. this morning, and he's over at the fairgrounds because today is the Senior Expo that begins at, it's going on right now.
Yes.
It started, and he's over there giving information, helping people, and caring about our seniors. And that's a neat thing. If you got something nothing to do today, go check it out. It goes till 3 p.m.
You don't have to be a senior to be on site, but it is amazing to step into their culture and what is all being targeted and offered for every senior at that phase of life. And of course now we are under the understanding that we could easily live to be 120 if you program yourself for health. There's no reason why we even have to consider retirement. The soul work didn't come to retire. We came to experience life, and that doesn't stop.
No, it doesn't. Go to YouTube and type in Young Love After 50, 50, and you'll see some of the amazing interviews that we've been doing and the places we've been going for the Fountain of Youth and how we're regaining and regain our life back. And we do it on a daily, but we do it on a moment basis.
We sure do. Breath by breath, it's just the best way to bring out the best in myself and each other. And it's so invigorating. It's intoxicating.
I want to thank the Valley Press for the last 2 weeks showcasing us. That was nice. And what's going on in your world, speaking of that?
Oh gosh, I think I'm ready to share once again. We have a very important 23-minute, 14-second video to share with you. It's a TED Talks. Goodbye, boys. See you again. Want to watch you grow. So it's a 23-minute, 14-second video from an attorney. He's speaking about the injustice in our country and his purpose. So at TED Talks, which is just an amazing energy community all by itself, forward thinking, using the intelligence of the mind to forward humanity in the highest way. So Bryan Stevenson, I believe his name is going to talk to us about the injustice within our judicial system over the last 40 years. And I personally, it's my second son, it's my family that it has impacted. And I believe with this mother's heart, it was brought to us to be a part of this correction within this time frame of humanity. And it's taken me well over a decade to reconcile this with the divine, because none of us would choose this. It's thrust upon us. And if it's happening to one of us, it's risky for all of us. And that's what's been happening. That's what's been happening in our justice system, our injustice system. So I hope you'll take the time to be informed by this fellow through this TED Talk. Remain hopeful, much to be hopeful for.
Well, this is a really extraordinary honor for me. I spend most of my time in jails and prisons on death row. I spend most of my time in very low-income communities, in the projects, and places where there's a great deal of hopelessness. And being here at TED and seeing the stimulation, hearing it, has been very, very energizing to me. And one of the things that's emerged in my short time here is that TED has an identity. And you can actually say things here that have impacts around the world, and sometimes when it comes through TED, it has meaning and power that it doesn't have when it doesn't. And I mention that because I think identity is really important. And we've had some fantastic presentations, and I think what we've learned is that if you're a teacher, your words can be meaningful, but if you're a compassionate teacher, they can be especially meaningful. If you're a doctor, you can do some good things, but if you're a caring doctor, you can do some other things. So I want to talk about the power of identity. And I didn't learn about this actually practicing law and doing the work that I do. I actually learned about this from my grandmother. I grew up in a house that was the traditional African-American home that was dominated by a matriarch, and that matriarch was my grandmother. She was tough, she was strong, she was powerful. She was the end of every argument in our family. She was the beginning of a lot of arguments in our family. She was the daughter of people who were actually enslaved. Her parents were born in slavery in Virginia in the 1840s. She was born in the 1880s, and the experience of slavery very much shaped the way she saw the world. My grandmother was tough, but she was also loving. When I would see her as a little boy, she'd come up to me and she'd give me these hugs, and she'd squeeze me so tight I could barely breathe. And then she'd let me go. And an hour or two later, if I saw her, she'd come over to me and she'd say, "Bryan, do you still feel me hugging you?" And if I said no, she'd assault me again, and if I'd say yes, she'd leave me alone. And she just had this quality that you always wanted to be near her. And the only challenge was that she had 10 children. My mom was the youngest of her 10 kids, and sometimes when I would go and spend time with her, it'd be difficult to get her time and attention. My cousins would be running around everywhere, and I remember when I was about 8 or 9 years old, waking up one morning, going into the living room, and all of my cousins were running around, and my grandmother was sitting across the room staring at me. And at first I thought we were playing a game. And I would look at her and I'd smile, but she was very serious. And after about 15 or 20 minutes of this, she got up and she came across the room and she took me by the hand and she said, "Come on, Bryan, you and I are going to have a talk." And I remember this just like it happened yesterday. I never will forget it. She took me out back and she said, "Bryan, I'm going to tell you something, but you don't tell anybody what I tell you." I said, "Okay, Mom." She said, "Now you make sure you don't do that." I said, "Sure." Then she sat me down and she looked at me And she said, I want you to know I've been watching you. And she said, I think you're special. She said, I think you can do anything you want to do. I will never forget it. And then she said, I just need you to promise me 3 things, Brian. I said, okay, Mom. And she said, the first thing I want you to promise me is that you'll always love your mom. She said, that's my baby girl, and you have to promise me now you'll always take care of her. Well, I adored my mom, so I said, yes, Mama, I'll do that. Then she said, the second thing I want you to promise me is that you'll always do the right thing, even when the right thing is the hard thing. And I thought about it, and I said, yes, Mama, I'll do that. Then finally she said, the third thing I want you to promise me is that you'll never drink alcohol. Well, I was 9 years old, so I said, yes, Mama, I'll do that. I grew up in the country in the rural South, and I have a brother a year older than me and a sister a year younger. And when I was about 14 or 15, one day my brother came home, and he had this 6-pack of beer. I don't know where he got it. And he grabbed me and my sister, and we went out in the woods, and we were kind of just out there doing the stuff we crazily did. And he had a sip of this beer, and he gave some to my sister, and she had some, and they offered it to me. And I said, no, that's okay. Y'all go ahead. I'm not going to have any beer. And my brother said, come on, we're doing this today. You always do what we do. I had some. Your sister had some. Have some beer. I said, no, I don't feel right about that. Y'all go ahead. And then my brother started staring at me. He said, what's wrong with you? Have some beer. Then he looked at me real hard. He said, oh, I hope you're not still hung up on that conversation Mama had with you. I said, well, what are you talking about? He says, oh, Mama tells all the grandkids that they're special. I was devastated. And I'm going to admit something to you. I'm going to tell you something I probably shouldn't. I know this might be broadcast broadly, but I'm 52 years old, and I'm going to admit to you that I've never had a drop of alcohol. I don't say that because I think that's virtuous. I say that because there is power in identity. When we create the right kind of identity, we can say things to the world around us that they don't actually believe make sense. We can get them to do things that they don't think they can do. When I thought about my grandmother, of course she would think all her grandkids were special. My grandfather was in prison during Prohibition. My male uncles died of alcohol-related diseases, and these were the things she thought we needed to commit to. Well, I've been trying to say something about our criminal justice system. This country is very different today than it was 40 years ago. In 1972, there were 300,000 people in jails and prisons. Today, there are 2.3 million. The United States now has the highest rate of incarceration in the world. We have 7 million people on probation and parole, and mass incarceration, in my judgment, has fundamentally changed our world. In poor communities and communities of color, there is this despair, there is this hopelessness that is being shaped by these outcomes. 1 out of 3 black men between the ages of 18 and 30 is in jail, in prison, on probation, or parole. In urban communities across this country, Los Angeles, Philadelphia, Baltimore, Washington, 50 to 60% of all young men of color are in jail or prison, or on probation and parole. Our system isn't just being shaped in these ways that seem to be distorting around race, they're also distorted by poverty. We have a system of justice in this country that treats you much better if you're rich and guilty than if you're poor and innocent. Wealth, not culpability, shapes outcomes. And yet we seem to be very comfortable. The politics of fear and anger has made us believe that these are problems that are not our problems. We've been disconnected. It's interesting to me. We're looking at some very interesting developments in our work. My state of Alabama, like a number of states, actually permanently disenfranchises you if you have a criminal conviction. Right now in Alabama, 34% of the black male population has permanently lost the right to vote. We're actually projecting in another 10 years, the level of disenfranchisement will be as high as it's been since prior to the passage of the Voting Rights Act, and there is this stunning silence. I represent children. A lot of my clients are very young. The United States is the only country in the world where we sentence 13-year-old children to die in prison. We have life imprisonment without parole for kids in this country. And we're actually doing some litigation. Only country in the world. I represent people on death row. It's interesting, this question of the death penalty. In many ways, we've been taught to think that the real question is, do people deserve to die for the crimes they've committed? And that's a very sensible question. But there's another way of thinking about where we are in our identity. The other way of thinking about it is not do people deserve to die for the crimes they commit, but do we deserve to kill? I mean, it's fascinating. Death penalty in America is defined by error. For every 9 people who have been executed, we've actually identified one innocent person who's been exonerated and released from death row. A kind of astonishing error rate. 1 out of 9 people, innocent. I mean, it's fascinating. In aviation, we would never let people fly on airplanes if for every 9 planes that took off, 1 would crash. But somehow we can insulate ourselves from this problem. It's not our problem. It's not our burden. It's not our struggle. Well, I talk a lot about these issues. I talk about a race and this question of whether we deserve to kill. And it's interesting, when I teach my students about African American history, I tell them about slavery. I tell them about terrorism, the era that began at the end of Reconstruction that went on to World War II. We don't really know very much about it, but for African Americans in this country, that was an era defined by terror. In many communities, people had to worry about being lynched. They had to worry about being bombed. It was the threat of terror that shaped their lives. And these older people come up to me now, and they say, Mr. Stevenson, you give talks, you make speeches, you tell people to stop saying we're dealing with terrorism for the first time in our nation's history after 9/11. They tell me to say, tell them that we grew up with that. And that era of terrorism, of course, was followed by segregation and decades of racial subordination and apartheid. And yet we have in this country this dynamic where we really don't like to talk about our problems. We don't like to talk about our history. And because of that, we really haven't understood what it's meant to do the things we've done historically. And we're constantly running into each other. We're constantly creating tensions and conflicts. We have a hard time talking about race. And I believe it's because we are unwilling to commit ourselves to a process of truth and reconciliation. In South Africa, people understood that we couldn't overcome apartheid without a commitment to truth and reconciliation. In Rwanda, even after the genocide, there was this commitment. But in this country, we haven't done that. I was giving this lecture in Germany, some lectures in Germany about the death penalty. It was fascinating because one of the scholars stood up after the presentation and said, well, it's deeply troubling to hear what you're talking about. I said, well, we don't have the death penalty in Germany. And of course, we can never have the death penalty in Germany. And the room got very quiet, and this woman said, there's no way with our history we can ever engage in the systematic killing of human beings. It would be unconscionable for us to, in an intentional, deliberate way, set about executing people. And I thought about that. What would it feel like to be living in a world where the nation-state of Germany was executing people, especially if they were disproportionately Jewish? I couldn't bear it. It would be unconscionable. And yet in this country, in the states of the Old South, we execute people where you're 11 times more likely to get the death penalty if the victim is white than if the victim is black, 22 times more likely to get it if the defendant is black and the victim is white. In the very states where there are buried in the ground the bodies of people who were lynched, and yet there is this disconnect. Well, I believe that our identity is at risk. That when we actually don't care about these difficult things, the positive and wonderful things are nonetheless implicated. We love innovation. We love technology. We love creativity. We love entertainment. But ultimately, those realities are shadowed by suffering, abuse, degradation, marginalization. And for me, it becomes necessary to integrate the two. Because ultimately, we are talking about a need to be more hopeful, more committed, more dedicated to the basic challenges of living in a complex world. And for me, that means spending time thinking and talking about the poor, the disadvantaged, those who will never get to TED. But thinking about them in a way that is integrated in our own lives. Ultimately, we all have to believe things we haven't seen. We do. As rational as we are, as committed to intellect as we are, innovation, creativity, development comes not from the ideas in our mind alone. They come from the ideas in our mind that are also fueled by some conviction in our heart. And it's that mind-heart connection that I believe compels us to not just be attentive to all the bright and dazzling things, but also the dark and difficult things. Václav Havel, the great Czech leader, talked about this. He said, when we were in Eastern Europe and dealing with oppression, we wanted all kinds of things, but mostly what we needed was hope, an orientation of the spirit, a willingness to sometimes be in hopeless places and be a witness. Well, that orientation of the spirit is very much at the core of what I believe even TED communities have to be engaged in. There is no disconnect around technology and design that will allow us to be fully human until we pay attention to suffering, to poverty, to exclusion, to unfairness, to injustice. Now, I will warn you that this kind of identity is a much more challenging identity than ones that don't pay attention to this. It will get to you. I had the great privilege when I was a young lawyer of meeting Rosa Parks, and Ms. Parks used to come back to Montgomery every now and then, and she would get together with two of her dearest friends, these older women, Johnny Carr, who was the organizer of the Montgomery bus boycott, an amazing African-American woman, and Virginia Durr, a white woman whose husband, Clifford Durr, represented Dr. King. And these women would get together and just talk. And every now and then, Ms. Carr would call me, and she'd say, Brian, Ms. Parks is coming to town, and we're going to get together and talk. Do you want to come over and listen? And I'd say, yes, ma'am, I do. And she said, well, what are you going to do when you get here? I said, I'm going to listen. And I'd go over there, and I would just listen. It would be so energizing and so empowering. And one time I was over there listening to these women talk, and after a couple of hours, Ms. Parks turned to me and she said, now, Brian, tell me what the Equal Justice Initiative is. Tell me what you're trying to do. I began giving her my rap. I said, well, we're trying to challenge injustice. We're trying to help people who've been wrongly convicted. We're trying to confront bias and discrimination in the administration of criminal justice. We're trying to end life without parole sentences for children. We're trying to do something about the death penalty. We're trying to reduce the prison population. We're trying to end mass incarceration. I gave her my whole rap, and when I finished, she looked at me and she said, She said, that's going to make you tired, tired, tired. And that's when Ms. Carr leaned forward. She put her finger on my face and said, that's why you've got to be brave, brave, brave. And I actually believe that the TED community needs to be more courageous. We need to find ways to embrace these challenges, these problems, the suffering. Because ultimately, our humanity depends on everyone's humanity. I've learned very simple things doing the work that I do. It's just taught me very simple things. I've come to understand and to believe that each of us is more than the worst thing we've ever done. I believe that for every person on the planet. I think if somebody tells a lie, they're not just a liar. I think if somebody takes something that doesn't belong to them, they're not just a thief. I think even if you kill someone, you're not just a killer. And because of that, there's this basic human dignity that must be respected by law. I also believe that in many parts of this country, and certainly in many parts of this globe, that the opposite of poverty is not wealth. I don't believe that. I actually think in too many places, the opposite of poverty is justice. And finally, I believe that despite the fact that it is so dramatic and so beautiful and so inspiring and so stimulating, we will ultimately not be judged by our technology. We won't be judged by our design. We won't be judged by our intellect and reason. Ultimately, you judge the character of a society, not by how they treat the rich and the powerful and the privileged, but by how they treat the poor, the condemned, the incarcerated. Because it's in that nexus that we actually begin to understand truly profound things about who we are. I sometimes get out of balance. I'll end with this story. I sometimes push too hard. I do get tired, as we all do. Sometimes those ideas get ahead of our kind of thinking in ways that are important. And I've been representing these kids who've been sentenced to do these very harsh sentences, and I go to the jail and I see my client who's 13 and 14, and he's been certified to stand trial as an adult, and I start thinking, well, how did that happen? How can a judge turn you into something that you're not? And the judge has certified him as an adult, but I see this kid, and I was up too late one night, and I started thinking, well, gosh, if the judge can turn you into something that you're not, the judge must have magic power. I said, yeah, Brian, the judge has some magic power. You should ask for some of that. And because I was up too late and wasn't thinking real straight, I started working on a motion. And I had a client who was 14 years old, a young, poor black kid, and I started working on this motion, and the head of the motion was a motion to try my poor 14-year-old black male client like a privileged white 75-year-old corporate executive. And I put in my motion that there was prosecutorial misconduct and police misconduct and judicial misconduct. There was a crazy line in there about how there's no conduct in this county, it's all misconduct. And the next morning I woke up and I thought, now, did I dream that crazy motion or did I actually write it? And to my horror, not only had I written it, but I had sent it to court. A couple months went by and I just had forgotten all about it. And I finally decided, oh gosh, I got to go to the court and do this crazy case. And I got in my car and I was feeling really overwhelmed. And I got in my car and I went to this courthouse and I was sitting, oh, this is going to be so difficult, so painful. I finally got out of the car and I started walking up to the courthouse. And as I was walking up the steps of this courthouse, there was an older black man who was the janitor in this courthouse. When this man saw me, he came over to me and he said, who are you? I said, I'm a lawyer. He said, you're a lawyer? I said, yes, sir. And this man came over to me and he hugged me. And he whispered in my ear, he said, I'm so proud of you. And I have to tell you, it was energizing. It connected deeply with something in me about identity, about the capacity of every person to contribute to a community, to perspective that is hopeful. Well, I went into the courtroom, and as soon as I walked inside, the judge saw me coming in. He said, Mr. Stevenson, did you write this crazy motion? I said, yes, sir, I did. And we started arguing. People started coming in because they were just outraged. I had written these crazy things. And police officers were coming in, and assistant prosecutors and clerk workers. And before I knew it, the courtroom was filled with people angry that we were talking about race, that we were talking about poverty, that we were talking about inequality. And out of the corner of my eye, I could see this janitor pacing back and forth, and he kept looking through the window, and he could hear all of this hollering. He kept pacing back and forth. And finally, this older black man, with this very worried look on his face, came into the courtroom and sat down behind me, almost at counsel table. About 10 minutes later, the judge said we would take a break, and during the break, there was a deputy sheriff who was offended that the janitor had come into court. And this deputy jumped up, and he ran over to this older black man. He said, Jimmy, what are you doing in this courtroom? And this older black man stood up, and he looked at that deputy, and he looked at me, and he said, I came into this courtroom to tell this young man, keep your eyes on the prize, hold on. I've come to TED because I believe that many of you understand that the moral arc of the universe is long, but it bends toward justice, that we cannot be full, evolved human beings until we care about human rights and basic dignity, that all of our survival is tied to the survival of everyone, that our visions of technology and design and entertainment and creativity have to be married with the visions of humanity, compassion, and justice. And more than anything, for those of you who share that, I've simply come to tell you to keep your eyes on the prize. Hold on. Thank you very much.
Brian, so you heard and saw an obvious desire by this audience, this community, to help you on your way and to do something on this issue. Other than writing a check, what could we do?
Well, there are opportunities all around us. If you live in the state of California, for example, there is a referendum coming up this spring where actually there's going to be an effort to redirect some of the money we spend on the politics of punishment. For example, here in California, we're going to spend $1 billion on the death penalty in the next 5 years. $1 billion. And yet, 46% of all homicide cases don't result in arrests. 56% of all rape cases don't result. So there's an opportunity to change that. And this referendum would propose having those dollars go to law enforcement and safety. And I think that opportunity exists all around us.
Now, there's been this huge decline in crime in America over the last 3 decades. And part of the narrative of that is sometimes that it's about increased incarceration rates. What would you say to someone who believed that?
Well, actually, the violent crime rate has remained relatively stable. You know, the great increase in mass incarceration in this country wasn't really in violent crime categories. It was this misguided war on drugs. That's where the dramatic increases have come in our prison population. And we got carried away with the rhetoric of punishment. And so we have 3 strikes laws that put people in prison forever for stealing a bicycle or for low-level property crimes, rather than making them give those resources back to the people who they victimized. I believe we need to do more to help people who are victimized by crime, not do less. And I think our current punishment philosophy does nothing for no one. And I think that's the orientation that we have to change.
Brian, you've struck a massive chord here. You're an inspiring person. Thank you so much for coming to TED. Thank you.
Isn't this amazing, these voices that are speaking up? Let us speak truth. We will speak truth. Silence like a cancer grows. And again, it's the politics of fear and anger. It is a punishment philosophy that we are breaking free, loosening the chains of this chapter of humanity, the communication of war, which is destructive. So there you go. Imagine, Jim.
Yeah.
Imagine all the people living life in peace. Wouldn't that just be something to witness and observe? We've made good use of this hour, proactive day in front of each of us, and I'm loving you more today than yesterday.
I love you too. So we're gonna have a great day. Weather is changing.
It's autumn.
It's autumn.
Fall has fell. Pumpkins everywhere. Everything pumpkin season. Thanksgiving is every day. So
I've never seen this
discovering it.
before. While the tape was on, I was out walking around the store here to see what's new out here. They have Halloween. They have organic candy, gummy bears.
Sure. Yeah, it can be done. You know, we can have our treats and tricks without it being harmful to one another. And here at the Whole Wheatery, it's a healthy lifestyle. If we have our health, we have our wealth, and we use our wisdom to navigate this.
Speak about health and wealth and navigation. Next Thursday, we will not be on the air because we're going to do some personal renovation.
Yeah, splish splash out at the waters of Tecopa Delights Hot Springs. It's the season.
Hey no, hey no, hey no, ho.
Very shamanic out there. So restoration, cleansing, rejuvenation. We're going to unplug from society, most of it.
Well, for 4 days. On the 5th day, of course, I'm a guest of NASA at the I always mispronounce
Oh, it's
at the
Goldstone.
Deep Space Communications Complex.
Mhm.
We're also going to go to the Mars field and look at the biggest antenna on the planet. I'll be getting lots of footage of that to share with y'all. And if you want to see what we did at NASA Dryden when the Endeavor was here, then go to our YouTube channel. That's Young World After 50. And no, it's on iLive Today. iLive Today YouTube channel. iLive Today AV YouTube channel. Go there and check out 22 videos. And I want to thank David McBride for how he greeted us and gave us such a good space.
Yes.
And I'm going to interview.
You called it healing space.
Yes, it is a healing space. Healing space. I get it. I just now got it.
We baby bloomers. We're healing space.
Well, the senior photographer for NASA Dryden was in one of those jets flying around the Endeavor while it was floating in the air. She's the one that got that most incredible shot of it at the Golden Gate Bridge. So we're going to interview her too next week and put that up for you. And I'm just real excited about the people I've met that I'm meeting right now, getting to know before this next. And there's just some incredible spirits here and on the planet that are coming together here with NASA. But as you said, total transparency.
Yes, radical transparency, inspiring, encouraging, empowering one another for a life well lived. Have a great day out there, everyone.
Hey, congratulations to my daughter who's having a little baby girl.
Yeah, much to be grateful for. Okay,
Hey,
seize the day.
Senior Expo today. Don't forget Senior Expo.
Bark
And
in the park on Saturday
Bark in
and
the Park.
Sunday.
We'll be there on Saturday or
Four-legged,
Sunday.
bark at the park Saturday and Sunday. Autumn's in the air. Just a beautiful time to be in the high desert of Southern California.
So see everybody
Bye.
next week. I'm gonna go over here and push a button.
Okay, bye. Have
Here's
a
what
great
you do.
day.
I like what you did last week. You went like this.
Remain hopeful.
Locust.